welcome to the deep dive. Today we're looking at, something a bit unusual for us. You sent in these excerpts from a work of fiction, a story called Amnesia.
Ah, yes, that one.
Now, okay, it is a story, but it really gets into some fascinating territory around memory, identity, and how we connect with others when circumstances are, let's just say, magically complicated.
Exactly. And what's so useful about looking at this fictional scenario, even though we often deal with, real-world research, is how it lets us really focus on the core aspects of these ideas. By putting these themes under this kind of intense imaginary lens, we can see the fundamental mechanisms of memory, identity, connection, maybe in a starker light.
So let's set the scene. We'd have Hermione Granger.
Yeah.
Brilliant, brave character for many listeners. She's lost all her memories. A stray curse during a pretty intense magical war.
Right.
She's in St. Mungo's, the magical hospital, and her past is essentially wiped clean. It's like she's a brand new book, no words in it yet.
An unwritten book, yeah. And here's where the story takes a surprising turn. Draco Malfoy.
Okay, him.
Yes. Who has this, let's say, complicated history with Hermione from Hogwarts. They weren't exactly friends.
Not at all. Rivals, maybe worse.
Precisely. He becomes this constant presence as she recovers. It's unexpected.
It's definitely unexpected.
And his reasons seem tied to his own journey after the war, maybe seeking some kind of atonement, making amends.
Right. Okay. So, for everyone listening, our goal here, our mission for this deep dive is to really dig into what this kind of situation tells us. When someone's sense of self, which is so tied to their memories, just vanishes, what happens next?
Yeah.
And what role can someone else, especially someone with a history as tangled as theirs, play in, I guess, helping rebuild that, or maybe creating something entirely new?
It's a great question. How much does our past define us? What if it's gone?
Exactly.
And the story immediately highlights how serious Hermione's situation is. The descriptions. Blank slate, dormant, like that unwritten book you mentioned, or one with empty pages. Really drives home the profound loss. It's not just forgetting where you put your keys.
No.
It's the absence of her entire personal history, the identity built on all those experiences. It's dramatic, sure, it's fiction, but it touches on real ideas about the brain, plasticity.
How we adapt.
Exactly, after losing information. Makes you wonder how fixed our identities really are.
And the MedWitch's assessment just underlines it, doesn't it? They've tried everything, diagnostic spells, memory potions.
Standard magical treatments, presumably.
And nothing works. It's described as a deep, persistent amnesia. Not temporary.
No, something much more fundamental.
Yeah.
And what's really interesting there is Draco's initial motivation. The story's pretty clear. It wasn't some heroic impulse that brought him to her bedside.
No.
It says it was an inexplicable need to stay and help.
Huh. Inexplicable.
Yeah. That lack of a clear, sort of noble reason right at the start makes what he does next even more compelling, I think.
How so?
Well, it hints at something deeper, maybe subconscious. The war's impact, perhaps. A personal reckoning. Something draws him there, to her, in this vulnerable state. It makes you think, can actions that maybe aren't purely altruistic still lead to good outcomes?
Interesting point.
Yeah.
Okay, let's delve into that rebuilding process. Hermione has this void where her past should be. How does she even begin to get a sense of self back?
Well, the story focuses heavily on Draco's role here, his consistent presence.
Right, he's just there.
And he's reading to her, telling her stories. What's significant, I think, is how he does it.
What do you mean?
It's not just facts, not a history lesson. He's using narrative stories, trying to reestablish a sense of who she was.
Oh, okay.
He shares stories about Hogwarts, her friends, the war, the big moments, the defining stuff.
So he's giving her back her own story.
In a way, he's offering her a framework, a potential self-narrative, filtered through him, of course, but it's something. Our identities are largely the stories we tell ourselves, right? So he's giving her building blocks for a new sense of self, maybe built on the foundations of the old one.
And the specific details he shares, they're quite revealing, aren't they? He talks about Hogwarts, sure, but also their rivalry.
The sharp retorts, biting insults.
Yeah. He doesn't sugarcoat that part.
No, which is telling. But he also talks about her courage, her intelligence.
The things that really defined her.
Exactly, the core qualities. And then there's that personal detail mentioning her beautiful smile. It feels like he's trying to paint a full picture, not just a heroic one.
Trying to piece her back together, maybe?
Maybe. And we see these tiny responses from Hermione at first. A flicker in her eyes. A whispered question. I did.
Small signs.
Very small, but portrayed as the first glimmers of potential recognition. A hint that maybe some emotional echo of her past remains, even without conscious memory.
Is that plausible? Like scientific?
Well, it touches on ideas about emotional memory. You know, how feelings linked to events might linger even if the explicit facts are gone. The amygdala, the emotion center, might hold on to something even if the hippocampus for conscious recall is offline, so to speak.
Fascinating. Okay, so things start to shift, don't they? Draco's actions move beyond just storytelling.
They do. He starts bringing her rare flowers from his family's greenhouses, apparently.
A very Malfoy gesture, perhaps, but still.
But still significant, and he stays with her through the night sometimes. These actions feel different, more personal.
Yeah, it goes beyond just being helpful. The story says he acts as if she were a precious treasure.
Right. That phrasing is key. It signals a shift from just trying to fix her memory to, well, something more like caregiving, emotional connection.
A protective instinct.
Perhaps. That initial inexplicable need seems to be evolving into genuine affection, a sort of protectiveness. It raises interesting questions about empathy, how it develops.
And from Hermione's side, there's a change, too, right? Her perception of him shifts dramatically.
Absolutely. He stops being the enemy, the tormentor from her forgotten past.
Which she doesn't remember anyway.
Exactly. And he becomes Draco, the man who is trying to give her back her life.
Right.
The story mentions a growing curiosity in her, an unfamiliar warmth when she looks at him.
So the blank slate isn't totally empty. It's like she's forming new impressions.
And he's the one making the strongest impression, filling that space.
Now, what about Draco's internal state? The story mentions his motivations changing, too.
Yes, quite explicitly. It says he came seeking redemption, maybe to ease his own guilt, but found love instead. That's a major turning point.
He falls in love with her. With the woman who doesn't remember him or their past.
Both, it seems. The narrative says he loves the woman she was, based on the stories and his own memories, and the woman she's becoming right now in front of him.
Wow, that's complex.
Extremely. It asks whether a genuine connection can form, or maybe reform, without that shared history as a foundation. Can it exist just in the present moment?
Which leads right into the tricky part of the past. Eventually, Hermione asks him directly, doesn't she?
She does. Tell me about us. What were we like?
That's a huge step for her. Shows trust.
Definitely. She's moving from passively receiving information to actively seeking to understand this connection she feels.
And how does he answer, given their history?
He's cautious. He says it was complicated. Starts honestly rivals, enemies even.
Okay, points for honesty there.
But then he adds, there was always an undeniable spark or connection, even amidst the conflict.
A spark. Even back then.
That's his interpretation, or how he chooses to frame it now. He gives examples, too.
Like what?
Arguments in the library, clashes in Persian's class, how they challenged each other. It wasn't indifference, it was intense interaction.
So painting a picture of energy between them, even if it was negative?
Or complex, at least, not simple animosity. And then he mentions a key moment for him, the Battle of Hogwarts.
Oh.
His realization during the battle that he couldn't bear to lose her, a turning point in his feelings, even if she never knew.
That adds another layer entirely.
It does. But it's also interesting what he doesn't quite spell out.
Oh. What does he leave out?
Well, he talks about how they went their separate ways after the war, but the story hints there was more. Stolen glances, tentative conversations.
Things unsaid.
Exactly, a shared longing that neither of them acted on. So he's giving her a version of the past, but maybe not the whole confusing, unresolved picture of their immediate post-war time.
Keeping it slightly simpler, perhaps. Protecting her or himself.
Could be either, or both. It adds complexity to their current situation, this unspoken, almost history.
So with this complicated past sort of laid out and this very blank present, they're kind of starting over.
In a very real sense, yes. And Hermione's reaction to his story is crucial, even without the memories to back it up.
Yeah.
She feels a strange sense of familiarity, a pull towards him that defied logic.
Wow. So something resonates, beyond just the facts.
It seems so. An emotional connection that's maybe deeper than conscious memory, which leads her to ask the big question for their present.
Which is?
What are we now?
Right here, right now. Forgetting the past. What does this mean?
Exactly. It shifts the focus entirely to the present and the future they might build. It suggests our emotional responses can guide us, even without the map of memory.
And Draco's answer is pretty direct.
Very. A full confession. I'm in love with you, Hermione.
He says it.
He does! And he specifies. with the woman you were, the woman you are, and the woman you are yet to become.
Covering all the bases, embracing all of her, memory or no memory.
It's a powerful declaration, and crucially, Hermione reciprocates not with memory, but with feeling.
She feels something real for him.
Yes, the story says she feels something real, despite the amnesia. It reinforces that idea. Love, connection, it can be built right now on present feelings and interactions. Shared past isn't always required.
It makes you wonder how much of love is shared history versus just clicking in the present.
A fundamental question, and the ending really leans into that symbolism, doesn't it?
The blank pages.
Yeah. Their story is now a new story written on those blank pages. A future that is ours alone.
Second chances. Redemption. Love against the odds.
All of that. It's just, identity isn't just what we remember, but also who we connect with now, the stories we choose to live out moving forward.
The blank pages are both the loss and the opportunity.
Precisely. Loss of the past, but freedom from its burdens too, maybe. A fresh start. It's a strong metaphor for resilience, for growth after loss.
So, wrapping up this deep dive into amnesia, we're left with some really potent ideas, I think.
Definitely.
The story shows just how fragile memory can be, how losing it shakes our whole sense of self, but also the incredible power of story's narrative in rebuilding that sense of self, and how deep connections, even love, can surprisingly bloom without a shared past.
Yeah, in the most unexpected soil. And for listeners, it's worth thinking about how this plays out, maybe less dramatically, in our own lives. Well, how much of your identity feels tied up in your memories? What happens when memories fade or change? And what role do the people around you play in shaping who you feel you are? You're storytellers, in a way.
And can you have really deep, meaningful connections without decades of shared history?
That's the question, isn't it?
It really makes you ponder. If you lost your memories, like Hermione, what would you hope someone would tell you? What stories would you need to hear to understand who you are?
Yeah. What are the essential parts?
And maybe the biggest takeaway from this story is about that enduring human connection. Something that seems to run deeper than just memory itself.
Something that transcends even those boundaries. It's a fascinating thought to leave things on.
Definitely something to mull over. Thanks for exploring this deep dive with us.